Today on Voice of the Valleys, ladies and gentlemen, an 18-year-old Eritrean migrant to Sweden rapes a 16-year-old girl and is convicted. However, activist judges ruled that he is not to be deported because in their purview, the rape didn't last long enough. We've also today got more information, ladies and gentlemen, about some of the nature of the rape gang inquiry from the government, where they're trying to broaden the scope and get away from the true motives of what's really going on, suspicious links with China, and surprisingly, Postman Pat coming out as a massive patriot. Patriot Pat, if you will. All that and more today on Voice of the Valleys. Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys. Hope we're all doing well. It's your friendly neighbourhood far-right thug, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well again. It's just a joke. It's just satirical. Hope we're all having a fantastic day. As you know, the leftists in government, leftists all over the place, love to call anybody that does not adhere strictly to their orthodoxy as far-right, as Nazi, as Gestapo-loving, goose-stepping undesirables, right? I had the opportunity recently, ladies and gentlemen, to have a conversation and also take part in an activity which I thought was really, really good. We had a by-election in Caerphilly recently. After I got in contact with some people, one of them, one of the activists who were taking part in a banner drop on one of the bridges across the A470 invited me to come along and see what the event was all about. And it was really, really good. I had the opportunity to see some more people, had the opportunity to see some activism firsthand. We got some clips to go over, all of that, and met some really, really amazing people, really nice people, people who were in similar boats to me for political opinions and so on, and things that they'd said. Some of them had even been the subject of an undercover hit piece from the BBC that came out not so long ago. An investigation, a 9-month undercover investigation into the quote-unquote far right. Right? So we're going to go over all of that a little bit later in today's episode. We're going to speed through it. First thing to get into, ladies and gentlemen, this is a heartbreaking story, and that is the story of a 16-year-old Swedish girl by the name of Maja Arberg. I hope I'm saying that right. Maja Arberg, or Aberg, however you say it. It's a Swedish girl, so obviously they've got the weird little circle above the A, so I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that. And on September 9th of this year, bear in mind this incident happened September of last year, Sweden's Court of Appeal for Upper Norrland convicted 18-year-old Eritrean quote-unquote refugee Yaziet Mohammed of raping 16-year-old Maja Arberg in a pedestrian tunnel in Skellefteå, I hope I'm saying that right, on September 1st, 2024. Now, why is this important, ladies and gentlemen? Obviously, it's tragic beyond words when a young girl is needlessly subjected to this incident or incidents like it, where, as she's said herself, she said it has, destroyed her. I hate him because he destroyed me. And this is not an isolated incident in Sweden. It's not an isolated incident in the rape capital of Europe now as well, which is the UK. But one thing that makes this particularly alarming, ladies and gentlemen, particularly anger-inducing, is that what happened was the prosecutor, after this came in, after, by the way, they had initially acquitted him, and I'll leave some documents down below, ladies and gentlemen, you can go and read. I'm not going to show them. I'm not going to try and read them myself because they're all in Swedish, and funnily enough, as one guy with limited capacity and very limited time on today's episode, I'm not able to go and translate them. There's no auto-translate button to translate the document into English so that I can read the necessary sections for you, so go and read it down below. If you're able to then translate it and put it in the comments for me, then please do. They, again, after they eventually convicted him as the perpetrator due to evidence such as witness descriptions, the victim recognition of him at school shortly after, and technical data, maybe metadata on his phone or whatever, placing him near the scene, sufficient to prove his guilt beyond reasonable doubt. He was sentenced to 3 years, just 3 years in prison, mind you, in order to pay her 240,000 krona, which is about $23,000 US dollars in damages. I'm not sure what that would be in pounds. You can do the conversion a bit quick. Prosecutor, naturally, sought deportation. Why the hell do we tolerate these disgusting people in our society? Obviously, our government wants them for their vote power. That's what they want. They see them as a voting bloc. That's why they want them here. But the appeals court denied it, ruling that whilst the rape was serious, it did not qualify as an exceptionally serious offence, one that would justify deporting a refugee, quote-unquote refugee again, under Swedish law. It's a military-age man we're talking about. which requires that the crime pose a quote-unquote serious threat to public order and safety. So apparently this incident where a 16-year-old girl was raped in a pedestrian tunnel as she was finishing her McDonald's shift did not qualify as a serious threat to public order and safety. Tells you a lot about the Swedish authorities, the Swedish judiciary as well, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Now you can see that the problem with woke judiciary, problem with activist judges, which, by the way, there's a photo on X, but if you go and look up a photo of this judge, she's reading an anti-fascist, an Antifa book, right? I'm not sure if it's a pamphlet or if it's a specific book. It looks like one of those very large books, right? And she's reading it proudly, smiling at the camera, this judge, right? Clearly showing the problem that we have in all of our countries, in Europe, in Britain, in America, of activist judges. The court's assessment explicitly factored in the nature and the duration of the offence, concluding these did not elevate it to the required threshold. So what they're saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that this 18-year-old Eritrean migrant who had no business being in Sweden in the first place, who raped a 16-year-old girl, cannot be deported and is only sentenced to prison for 3 years and given a fine of $23,000. I'll do the conversion a bit quick for you, ladies and gentlemen, just so you can understand, my British listeners. If I quickly do USD to GBP, it's about 17,000, just over 17,000 pounds, 283 pounds at time of recording. Okay. 17,000 pound fine. 3 years in prison. And he doesn't even get deported after horrifically raping a 16-year-old girl when he had no business being in the country in the first place. One dissenting judge, a lay judge from the Sweden Democrats Party, argued for deportation, stating that the crime was severe enough and Mohammed's ties to Sweden were not strong enough to prevent it, but the majority overruled. Arberg, now 17, described the attack in media interviews. We've got one of the clips coming up in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I want to show you. She had just finished a McDonald's shift, missed her bus, and was walking home when Mohammed followed her into a tunnel, took her phone, grabbed her, and raped her despite resistance. She reported it immediately and later spotted him at school, triggering a panic attack. Imagine having to go to school and see the person that just raped you the day after, the day before. Imagine how terrifying that is. How vulnerable you've been made to feel. How weak you've been made to feel. How powerless you've been made to feel. The experience you've had happen to you at 16. You're 17 now, but at 16, then you've got to go back into school. You've got to face that person again. Now, what are the teachers going to do if he decided to do something? If he decided to try and seclude you in a place in the school or whatever, where nobody's looking. The teachers, they wouldn't say anything. They'd be deemed as racist or xenophobic or Islamophobic and all the rest of it, right? So we're seeing here, recently broke, ladies and gentlemen, as well, that a headmaster, and I put, in my opinion, something that most people would find controversial on X when I said this, recently in the Southport attack, we're talking about racial profiling, quote unquote, and all of this, the headmaster was silenced from raising concerns about Axel Rudekabana because she would have been accused of racial profiling. So what the lesson to be learned from that is, ladies and gentlemen, is I say, quote unquote, racial profiling, because it's nothing to do with racial profiling. It's pattern recognition. It's pure pattern recognition. That pattern recognition, that quote-unquote racial profiling, would have saved 3 families from the absolute worst of atrocities that could ever happen to them. It would have saved even more people from being injured. Would have saved 3 young girls from being slaughtered in one of the worst ways that we've seen. Racial profiling, quote unquote, would have prevented that, or at least would have made it more likely that Southport wouldn't have happened. Do with that what you will. Remigration now. And scorn and shame on all of the news organisations, the BBC and all of the others that tried to say that he was a Welshman. How dare you? How dare you try to associate me and my countrymen with that disgusting scum? How dare you? She told the media, going back to Arberg now, I hate him because he destroyed me. Case fits into broader Swedish trends where rape convictions have doubled over the past decade. I wonder why. a higher rate of prosecutions leading to guilty verdicts in the previous years, in recent years even. So here is a young girl, ladies and gentlemen, speaking to the media. I'm not sure what media organization it is, someone by the name of Noran, I believe it is. Again, she is a 16-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl now, who was raped by an 18-year-old Eritrean migrant and avoided deportation after the court ruled that essentially the rape didn't last long enough and it wasn't severe enough. That's where we are in our supposed enlightened societies nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. We're not deporting foreign rapists because, oh, well, the rape didn't last that long, so it's quite clearly not that bad. There's no words.
Jag mår fortfarande illa när jag tänker på det. Jag har ju berättat det här 1000 gånger. Speciellt för polisen och när det har varit i tingsrätten. Men jag känner ju fortfarande att det är sjukt jobbigt. Under hela skolåret, förra året, så var jag knappt i skolan. Nu då och då så drömmer jag ju fortfarande mardrömmar om det. Och jag har varit jätterädd att vara ute och gå själv. Så jag går nästan aldrig själv ute nu. Jag bryter fortfarande ihop när jag sitter och pratar om det länge och kommit in på detaljer. Att det blir som att jag återupplever igen och jag känner hans händer på mig. Men som tur så har jag mina jättefina vänner och mina föräldrar som har varit där för mig varenda dag. Nej, det känns så overkligt att det också var för... Jag kommer alltid påverkas någonting av det här. Jag önskar ju verkligen nu när andra tjejer hör det här, det är också därför jag vill göra det, att de också ska tänka att det är värt att anmäla. Även fast det kanske inte går igenom. Men det kan faktiskt vara värt. För det kan ju också hjälpa en annan tjej.
So what I'll do now is, ladies and gentlemen, a bit quick, is I'll just read you what she was actually saying. Obviously, the subtitles were on there for those of you who are watching on the screen. You'll be able to follow along with everything that she said, but obviously the interview is in Swedish. She started off by saying, I still feel sick. I still feel sick when I think about it. Fast forward this just a little bit. I've told this story 1,000 times, especially to the police and when I have been to the district court, but I still feel that it's really hard. During the whole school year last year, I barely went to school. Now and then, I still dream about it. And that's obviously not dream in a positive sense, ladies and gentlemen. It's dream as in she's reliving the trauma. It's a nightmare. I've seen some horrible things recently that have been put, some horrible trolls that have been putting stuff on Koren, Telford Survivors X page recently. There's some prominent people within political discourse accusing her of just being a right-wing grifter and all of these things. Absolutely disgusting stuff. When she showed a picture of her when she was 12 years old, when she started getting raped, there was a school photo, and people were saying, yeah, oh yeah, and you didn't like it? Oh, that was the in-fashion thing, you know what I mean? And basically trying to hold her culpable as well for being groomed and raped by these Pakistani gangs, right? A lot of them, they like accounts with like one follower or just following one person or whatever. They complete either bot accounts or troll accounts, right? But it's just truly disgusting. It's truly, truly disgusting. It's either, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of farm or algorithm that's created these accounts, or somebody's actually sat down and created that account to say that stuff to somebody who's been through the worst of atrocities, right? No, Corinne, for example, if you didn't know, actually has a son from one of these incidents, right? From being groomed and raped by these gangs, right? And she's struggling to take care of, has had no amount of, you know, I don't want to say trouble, because obviously it's her son and she deeply loves him very much. It's deeply courageous what Corinne has done in that instance, in my opinion, because a lot of people would have seen that and then held the child accountable for the sins of the father. But no, she chose to bring him into the world and has done her best to try and take care of him. And even in our courts nowadays, you have these disgusting paedophilic gang rapists still being able to access those children. It's a messed up situation. It's a messed up situation. But then she goes on to say, I've been really scared to go out and walk by myself. I'm not surprised. So I almost never go out alone now. I still break down when I sit and talk about it for a long time. especially when I go into the details. It feels like I'm reliving it again, and I feel his hands on me. But luckily, I have my great friends, my parents, who have been there for me every single day. Skip before just a bit more. I will always be affected by this. I really hope now that other girls hear this. That is also why I want to do it. They should also think that it is worth reporting, even though it might not go through, but it can actually be worth it. It might help another girl. So courageous there. The first thing on her mind afterwards, and why she's speaking to the media and reliving this multiple times, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the things which you're taught in any kind of safeguarding training, for example, is that if you have a child, for example, that has to recount a traumatic event, you not only make sure that you take down every single thing in their own words exactly as they say it to the best of your ability, but you always try to make sure that you get it on the first try, because they're reliving this every single time they talk about it. They're reliving it. She's choosing to go through the suffering of reliving it over and over again to try and bring this to the media. And then you have the activist judges saying, yeah, we're not even going to get rid of him. After 3 years, you'll probably do 18 months, or 12 months even. He'd be let out within a year and then he'd be free to do the same again. It's disgusting. These people have no respect for us. These people have no respect for us, ladies and gentlemen, as Europeans, as Brits, as white people, whatever, as infidels. Right? They have no respect for us whatsoever. And that came through with things that are happening in the government's inquiry at the moment. There's a quote here which Katie Lamb gave in a speech in Parliament with all the controversy going on around Jess Phillips and all of these other things, right? And many of the girls have now said, if Jess Phillips is going to be in on it, we're not going to do it. And it does seem that the ones who have come out said that they will only stay on the panel if Jess Phillips is allowed to stay on as safeguarding minister. I don't want to say that they, plants, because that's a horrific thing to say, right? But even one of the fathers have come out, I believe, and tried to correct the record on this on X regarding one of his daughters, I believe. They basically put there deliberately by Jess seemingly to secure her position. That's what it seems to be. I'm not confirming that or anything like that, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of conflicting statements going on with it at the moment. Fair to say people are not happy. They're not happy because our government sat idly by whilst millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of our girls were raped across generations. People said things like, we're here to fuck all the white girls and fuck the government. This is Katie Lamb, ladies and gentlemen, on the floor of Parliament, showing exactly how these people thought.
The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. One of the victims from Dewsbury was told by her rapist, I quote, "We're here to fuck all the white girls and fuck the government." Will the minister accept that, in many cases, these crimes were racially and religiously aggravated? The men who preyed...
Why do you think they want to broaden the scope, ladies and gentlemen? It's exactly why Katie Lamb said they want to get away from the two main points, the two main bits of motivation that led to these atrocities, that led to some of the greatest, crime against humanity in recent memory, in terms of the magnitude, in terms of the atrocities themselves, in terms of the insidious nature of the cover-ups, in terms of families that were persecuted for trying to get justice, for trying to highlight the truth, right? We're talking about young girls being fed into mincers and being turned into kebab meat. We'll talk about that when you get into the most depraved levels of it. We're here to fuck all the white girls and fuck the government. In many ways, they've successfully done so. It all matters how much we tolerate of it now. But I can tell you, there's very few people that are currently in the halls of Parliament that are going to do what's necessary, I think. They're going to take it as far as it needs to. Because they still feel as though they're invincible. They still feel as though they're invincible because even if they were to commit some of the greatest crime that anybody in government can commit, which is treason, they're not even going to suffer the death penalty for it. They're not even going to lose their life for it. Since Tony Blair changed it when he got into power. Funny how he done that, right? For those of you who don't know, treason before Tony Blair got into office was punished by death. Now it's just life in prison. You know, these guys with the judiciary that they've set up, with the kangaroo courts, as part of the banana monarchy that we are, they're never going to see justice under this system. You know? That's why everything, whether it's in the NHS, I've spoken about with whistleblowers, whether it's in government, the halls of government, everything is to preserve the system. They don't care about the victims. They don't care about the families that they've torn apart. They don't care about the dad who died from grief recently. There's a headline broke recently that a dad died from grief because of something that happened to his daughter, that she was preyed on. I don't think it was in Britain. I think that was somewhere else. I'll quickly pull up the story for you now, ladies and gentlemen. A dad died of grief because his daughter was preyed on. I think she was 12 at the time. Let's see if I can find this. I'll see if I can find it and put it down in the editing set, down in the show notes for you, ladies and gentlemen. But they don't care about any of that stuff. The government don't care about any of that stuff. They only care about their system. They only care about preserving their system. Because many others now have come out and said as well. One of the rape victims has come out on Talk TV. For example, Ellie Reynolds, I believe it is, she's a grooming gang survivor, and I believe one of the three that left the panel over these independence concerns. She said that Starmer's inquiry ordered her not to mention ethnicity or religion. That's what broadening the scope means, ladies and gentlemen. They want to group all manner of predator in with this so that they can get rid of the specific, or obfuscate away from the specific nature of these rape gangs. That the victims that they targeted for the most part were because they were white and British, and that they did so because of both religion and racial supremacy in their ideology. That's why they did it. Here's that clip from Talk TV, which says, everyone on the panel is biased against the truth. Victims were silenced to protect political correctness. Another inquiry needs to be built to another inquiry is built to hide facts instead of expose them. Here's Miss Reynolds for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Of people responsible for this were Muslim men of Pakistani origin. As I understand it, you wanted to sort of laser focus on that, and you got the feeling that this inquiry, as it was unfolding, didn't want to do that. They wanted to widen the remit so that the finger wasn't pointed at Muslim men of Pakistani origin. Would that be a fair summary of what was concerning you?
Yeah, absolutely. In mine and a few others' opinions, you know, there was already the ICSA that widened the panel, and we really wanted to be able to crack down on rape gangs here that are predominantly Muslim males. We felt almost like we had to tiptoe around that subject, though. We became quite fearful, really, of describing what ethnicity our abusers were, and it should never get to that. However, you have to look at the lady that was running the panel along with the Home Office. She was an ethnic minority ambassador, so I don't believe personally that she was ever pro-victims, pro-survivors in this case. Everyone that's on these panels are very biased. They're not impartial. They're not for the survivors. I think it was a way to find out what survivors knew, what they were going to raise, and how they could cover it up in the future.
Well said, Ellie. And if you don't mind, I'm going to write.
Says it all there, ladies and gentlemen. The inquiry was built to find out what survivors were going to say so that they could find a way to cover it up. Because they don't care about protecting children's innocence. That's why they push all manner of degeneracy through the public school system. They don't care about protecting any kind of childhood innocence. They don't care about protecting and ensuring that these things won't happen again. If people in these communities, these perpetrator communities, would vote for the government, they would let them do it, and they still let them do it to this day. And that is why. Because they want their votes. They've decided there's no amount of children that they won't sacrifice for votes. Think about all the children that have been sacrificed in the name of all of what I see are predominantly, I say leftist initiatives, right? Initiatives that have come from the left. And I say that grouping the quote-unquote conservatives in with that lot for how they conducted themselves over the 14 years that was one of the biggest betrayals of Britain that we've ever seen, right? You know, they've been some of the biggest howlers and pushers of abortion, for example, which have killed untold millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, even in just the last couple of years, right, all across the world. Consecutive prime ministers, both on conservative and Labour ends, and in many ways others as well, have covered up for rape gangs because they go all the way back, you know, to the 50s, but all done in the name of these, for the most part, leftist initiatives, which is multiculturalism, diversity, all of these things. They only care about the system. They only care about the votes. And they don't care what they have to do to get those things. And they've shown that no amount of children, you know, they're not willing to sacrifice on those altars of quote-unquote progress. It's just another facet of it, ladies and gentlemen. And again, we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of victims. And again, you all know why some of these people want Jess Phillips out, ladies and gentlemen, which is why anybody who's defending her at this point is questionable in motive. Tells you a lot about now a lot of the very hard-wing left types coming out saying, why are the people on the right only talking about the rape gangs now? Now they want Jess Phillips out or whatever. They're trying to push women out of governmental positions, all of this stuff, right? This is one of the others, I believe, on the panel. Grooming gang survivor by the name of Jade recalls her experience on GB News with Jess Phillips about how the safeguarding minister reacted listening to the accounts of her and the other victims. I'll just leave this play for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think.
This is a complete mess. The Prime Minister announced this inquiry, which of course we know initially he didn't want 4 months ago. 4 or 5 survivors have walked away from it. 5 are saying they'll walk away from it if Jess Phillips is sacked. No sign of a chairman being appointed. How do you feel about this, Jade?
It just angers me. I really don't understand why it's taken them so long to do anything about it. It's been going on for absolute years. And Jess Phillips, she needs to go. She needs to go. We're not going to get anywhere with this, with her.
Jade, why do you say she has to go? Was it the tone she adopted in the Commons the other day?
Yeah, I've sat in the House of Lords with her in a room speaking about our experiences, and she just sat there looking at her phone with a smirk on her face and wanted to walk away. Yeah, and as soon as we started expressing our emotions and got a little bit angry, she just wanted to walk away. We didn't let her, but she wanted to.
You'll know as well, there was that one clip, they were talking about it in the Commons, ladies and gentlemen. They were talking about it in the House, and Jess Phillips had her head down looking at her phone, and she was smirking, laughing at something. It would have been one of those, again, ever so funny memes that the left comes out with, as she was finding so hilarious, as there was I believe it was a conversation around the grooming gangs that was going on, the rape gangs, rather. Straight from the mouth of the survivors. Here you go. This is where the left say, believe all women, right? You're going to believe Jade? You're going to now believe Jade when she says that this is how Jess Phillips conducted herself? You're going to maybe hold your own side accountable? You know, maybe actually come out on the side of the victims for once? Right? And not come out on the side of the system? No. Very likely not. They likely just call them right-wing grifters and, you know, Tommy Robinson fangirls and all the rest of it. As I believe it was John O'Connell said that about Corinne, for example. He quote posted one of her posts, said about right-wing Tommy Robinson accounts, and doubled down on it when Corinne, Telford survivor, said that I'm a victim of these gangs. That was a nice voice break there, wasn't it? And I'm a victim of one of these gangs, and that's all you have to say. It shows exactly how demented many areas of the left have become. And one thing, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, if you think the administration is going to do anything about this, you'd be completely wrong, because they care about the system. Nothing encapsulates that more. Just think about it. In the run-up for the next election, ladies and gentlemen, just think if the rumours around Nigel Farage's health are true, and that he could potentially be grooming Zaya Yousaf to be his successor or whatever, for the next prime ministership, we could potentially be having a toss-up, for example, between either, say, what was his name, Lamy or Mahmood for Labour, right? Kemi for the Conservatives, and then Zaya Yousaf for Reform. All foreigners. All foreigners of questionable allegiance, right, and questionable intelligence, certainly in Lamy Lanebrains' case, running to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, or Great Britain, running to be Prime Minister of the UK. That would just encapsulate everything, wouldn't it? That we can't even have one of our own candidates run. Our own people, rather. How much of a sign of decline would that be? But speaking of Shabana Mahmood, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, she's the Home Secretary now. She's sort of in charge of all of the stuff with regards to immigration and all of this stuff, right? You think she would do anything about this, ladies and gentlemen? She spoke about securing the borders, right, and referencing a Sun article. I believe she might have put a column in or whatever, saying the latest small boat numbers are shameful and the British people deserve better. I will do whatever it takes to secure our borders. It has 734,000 views, only 1.2 thousand likes, 4.2 thousand comments. So like-to-comment ratio is absolutely insane. By the way, one of my posts went viral a little while ago where I quote posted a bit low, had about 720,000 views, had about 20,000 likes. Okay, so I have one experience of what it's like to go viral, supposedly, to this magnitude, right? What a firestorm on that was, right? The phone just kept blowing up. The phone just absolutely kept blowing up. You know, Mine Frago memes, the lot, right? People are not receiving this well, understandably so. Because not long ago, I believe, I'm not sure when this video is exactly from, but Leilani Dowding put it up on X, highlighting that she is a disgraceful liar because Shabana Mahmood was welcoming small boat illegals to Greece. She went out to Greece, seemingly, specifically, just to welcome these small boat arrivals to Greece. And it's on video. That's the beauty of these things. They document it themselves because they think that nothing is ever going to come back to bite us in the arse with regards to this. Put it on video, showing their virtue. One day it will come back to bite them in the arse. That day, the start of what is going to bring that day, could be today with you sharing this episode.
We're still here at Skibenia, where another boat of refugees has arrived over Turkey, and the layout is that there's a clothes station where they can get some dry clothes, and then there's a medic station, and then there's some food. All of this is being provided primarily by young volunteers, and honestly, I take my hat off to them. These people don't have very much.
So there you go. She's saying we're welcoming small boat arrivals to, I'll just find out the place name. Skibenia, however you say it. It's welcoming small boat illegals to Greece. So again, just flagrant lies, ladies and gentlemen. But the other thing is they've done nothing to show us, nothing to indicate that they are in any way different in their thought processes. Tells you a lot. When Keir Starmer, I believe it was, recently went to meet with a bunch of Muslims in the area where the car outside of a mosque was torched in what appeared to be a Muslim-on-Muslim conflict, right? There were Punjab voices being heard by people that could actually understand what was going on, right? Understand what was being said on the camera. And has pledged, I think, another about 10 million or so pounds, if I'm not mistaken, to protecting mosques or whatever. So now we're protecting Muslim interests, seemingly from either other foreigners or other Muslims who are having their conflicts on British soil. And British taxpayers have to foot that bill. And people still think either we're a free country or our government is for us. So it maddens you. Boggles the mind. What did boggle the mind, ladies and gentlemen, or rather, what did boggle my mind with reassurance? Reassurance in that I was down in Taftswell recently, as I mentioned. And I met up with a group of activists there after I got in contact with one of them that's hopefully going to be coming on the podcast, possibly next weekend. That they were doing a bridge drop, I think they call it. Banner drop on a bridge on the A470 near Caerphilly. I think it's believed it's the last sort of turn off before you get to the turn off the slip road to go into Caerphilly itself. Right, the biggest road. There was a lot of cars going through, a lot of people seeing this, and they had a couple of banners up there and flags. They were waving Welsh flags. They had one banner up there saying Wales needs reform. They had another one saying Plaid Cymru are traitors. And the guys here, some of the guys, the guy that was leading the demo has been, leading demos and all manner of things for years and years. Potentially even longer than I've been an adult, for sure. But it was great. It was great to go up there and actually see the reception, ladies and gentlemen. The reception was extremely positive. It was really, really reassuring. So I was saying to the guys there, we had a long chat, after they'd taken all the banners down and they were going to close down the event and all stuff like that. A long chat about, the state of things, about nationalism, about all manner of different things. And just having that, literally like kind of getting out and touch grass, right? It was really reassuring because when we were on the bridge, you had a few people, shouting up at the bridge, F off and Nazis and fascists. And you just down there laughing, like you're just absolutely laughing. It was funny, right? But people constantly honking their horns, right? A lot of them in either adulation or, understanding what was going on and understanding what it meant. You had loads of people giving thumbs up, waving out the windows, all manner of things, right? I was really, really reassuring to see. And although the Caerphilly by-election did not go the way many would have hoped, it actually does give a lot of hope, for these areas in how switched on people are, right? There are some, which I'll go over in a moment, that are still stuck in that Plaid Cymru is any alternative to Labour and that they're actual opposition, right? Some people, which I'll go over in a moment, actually voted for Plaid Cymru because immigration is too high. And I decided that Plaid Cymru's whole shtick is to bring more and more immigration to Wales because they say they're proudly internationalist, right? But it's just really, really nice. And when I got up there, did I see a bunch of goose-stepping, armband wearing, Hugo Boss adorned, Nazis? No, it's regular people. Regular people. The guy who was, the guy who was leading the event had pretty much just come straight off of a job site. Had his, high vis on, covered in paint and covered in all manner of different things with, the shorts on that workmen wear with all the pockets to put their stuff in, right? Just straight off the friggin' job site. Some of them, just have regular factory jobs, right? But they see the way it's going. They see what's happening in England. They see what the government are trying to do to the country. They just say, no, we should be against this. Just regular people. Regular, very happy people, right? Patriotic people. Not happy with the way that things are going on, right? But not saying any of these things which you would associate with like far-right Nazism or anything like that. At least the people I met and the people that I spoke to. Some of them were saying they were big fans of the show. They'd actually seen what I've been doing. They've actually seen the videos and they were really big fans of what I've been doing. It was really nice for me to get that feedback as well. Especially when some of them are actually saying to me what they've learned from things that I've said, for example, or perspective they've gained from what I've said, particularly with, I think one of the guys had never really thought about it before, but the fact that all they have to do in a lot of our areas, because we're quite split in terms of how we vote anyway, we're quite in opposition to each other in how we vote anyway, they only need, this is my second voice break in this episode, Jesus Christ, they only need to bring in, the government only needs to bring in a small amount of people in each community to sway the vote permanently. A very small amount, right? Now, if we all voted one way, let's say every single person in a constituency voted for one party, every single one, they had 100% of the vote. Now, see, to sway it, they would have to bring in a number of people that is the same number and then slightly more to sway it to a 51% majority, right? Assuming there's only two parties and stuff like that. One of the biggest problems that we have in the UK is the first past the post system, which got, for example, the Plaid Cymru candidate elected on a minority of the vote. So another thing I don't see people talking about is that now Caerphilly are being represented by a person that not even 50% of the people voted for, right? But they only have to bring a small amount because we're already divided as it is. That puts us in a very dangerous position. I'm glad people were starting to see that. People that I spoke to on this event were starting to see that. But here's some snippets of the event, ladies and gentlemen. There's a small video which I'll play for you now. It's up on YouTube. It'll be linked down below, of the actual banner drop event itself. And you can see here, it's not, you know, from what I can see, at least, and from what I experienced at this event, a fascist Nazi demonstration, right? This was just regular people like you and me making their voices heard and are politically aware of the problems and what's going to come down the future. In Wales, as I said, at the moment, it seems at least that we are quite lucky. We're quite lucky in that the worst things haven't come for us yet. But that can be changing very, very soon. Here's that video for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, you might have seen a slight cut there.
Right, guys, we're back on the A470 at Caerphilly. Welsh nationalist team are out again. It's the day before the election. We're looking for the people of Caerphilly to do the right thing for Wales and vote reform. Plaid is not the answer, folks. They're a multicultural. They support mass immigration into Wales. They want Wales to be a nation of sanctuary. We can't afford to do this. All right, local people can no longer afford to rent locally. Bear that in mind tomorrow, Caerphilly, as you go to the poll. This is an important one. And we need to send a message to Plaid Cymru. Plaid is not the answer. Wales needs reform.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right.
Thousands of people are seeing the message. Plaid is not the answer. Wales needs reform. Look at the support.
Now, these people, ladies and gentlemen, are just, it's just going through a couple of still images at the moment. These people, ladies and gentlemen, they understand that reform are not even the answer in the long term, it would seem, right? Not even the answer in the long term. So it seems that they've gone back on a lot of things that they said they were going to do, right? You know, they've softened on immigration, they've softened on Islam, they've softened on all of these things. They brought in a Mohammedan chairman, which is truly, truly suspect, right? But they're a bit like me. They understand that it might be a stepping stone towards actually making, you know, positive changes for the people of Wales, right, in an administration in the future, right? They understand that, you know, don't let great or don't let perfect right now be the enemy of good, so to speak, what you can get. You know, so a lot of the changes we like to see wouldn't, I don't think, come from a reform government. But they could be the first potentially necessary starting point. And that, I think, was borne out quite well. Not sure how much difference this would have made in the actual event, in the actual results themselves. But what happened on the day, ladies and gentlemen, in Caerphilly, was this. So this is the way it ended up panning out in the end. It's not the result we would have wanted, but I think it did indeed give a lot of hope. A lot of hope. For the first time, as you'll see now when I bring it up on screen, Labour lost Caerphilly. For the first time in about 100 years, they lost Caerphilly. So as you can see on screen, Plaid Cymru ended up winning the vote share with 47.4% overall. Reform UK came in second with 36%, and Labour then came in third place with 11%. That cringy video which Richard Tunnicliffe posted is like trying to walk down the street with like this music in the background, trying to make him look like the big fucking I am, as if like John Gotti or something like that. I don't fucking know. It didn't work. It was absolute cringe. Go and find the video if you want. It'll be on Welsh Labour's page, I would imagine, or unless they've taken it down out of shame. But then you had Conservatives. Conservatives never going to do it very well, not only in Wales, right, because they remember Thatcherism and all the rest of it, especially in these areas, but then they also see the betrayal of the Conservatives in Westminster over 14 years. They say the Conservatives have an extremely bad name in pretty much all areas of the country now, all the way up as far as Scotland. Me and John Carr spoke about that. Links down below for our conversation. Still in members early access. You can get it Monday if nothing else. And you had Green and Liberal Democrat and Gwlad and UKIP coming up the rear. But what you're seeing here is, ladies and gentlemen, the really stark thing is that this is, again, why not only are we not voting necessarily in our best interests, as we'll show you in a moment. People actually voted for Plaid thinking that immigration was too high and thinking they were actually going to do something about it. But not only that, you're seeing here that the candidate, Lindsay Whittle, got elected with a minority share of the vote. So now he gets the seat when more than half, right? The majority of people who voted, at the very least, I don't know what the actual voter turnout was. If the voter turnout was anything less than 100%, then this is going to bring his vote, not his vote share, but bring the overall amount of people that are being represented by him who wanted him down even further. Right? 'Cause for example, if he got 47 or we'll just say 47% of the vote share of 100% of the people that could have voted. But then if only, for example, 80% of people voted, well, you've got to factor in that 20% that didn't, that are still going to be represented by him. So if there was actually not 100% voter turnout, his vote share in terms of that turnout would actually change. But the amount of voters he would have had overall out of the overall voting bloc would have been even less. What you see now, ladies and gentlemen, you see minority rule. You're actually seeing minority rule because the majority of people did not want Plaid Cymru candidate to win, did not want to be represented by the Plaid Cymru candidate, but they have to be they have to be represented by him anyway. So that's a bigger problem with our electoral system, ladies and gentlemen. But you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, reform, which is in many ways basically Conservatives 2.0 with some slightly better talking points, have gone from, in one by-election in the last couple of years, right, they now take up 36% of the vote share. That is massive. That is massive, but it does speak, even if it doesn't speak to a governmental change, it speaks to a massive societal change. Not everybody is caught on, and they had that one guy on Politics Joe that was quoting Hitler and all the rest of it, right? I don't know, it seems very suspect to me. But he had all manner of people on the ground that they were speaking to. But the one thing I wanted to bring you to, ladies and gentlemen, is this example. And this was sent to me by some of the others as well. A Labour voter in Caerphilly said she switched to Plaid because immigration is too high. Now, again, they put out that puff piece, I think it was on the BBC, or they put out that emotional appeal of the woman saying, oh, well, these people only make up so much of a percent and now you're demonising them and I don't feel safe anymore. Well, go to Luton. I would say go to Luton or go to some of these areas where you've got these hotels and let me know if you feel any safer. Go to these areas where you are in a minority and let me know if you feel any safer. So I have a lot of people saying these things, ladies and gentlemen. They live in vast majority white native British or white Welsh areas, right, for the most part. Yeah, easy to say that when you live literally amongst your people. And then people who are not living amongst their people when they're in a minoritized state say, what the hell are you on about? There's no problems up here, so what problems have you got? That's why you've got to be careful with appeals to emotion. That's why the media loves to run with them so much, appeals to emotion. Right, despite the fact that heinous atrocities are taking place that they would never touch. They voted for Plaid because they thought immigration was too high. Yet they voted for an internationalist party which wants to make Wales a nation of sanctuary. And when I had a bit of discourse with somebody on X over this, and they said that nation of sanctuary wasn't an immigration policy. As though some people are thinking, ladies and gentlemen. Another thing that people are thinking is they didn't vote for reform, or they hate reform so much, they think they're an English nationalist party. That's genuinely how some people think. It's genuinely how some people think. I sent it to one of the guys who were at the protest, like a screenshot of a post saying, we don't want your English nationalism here. But these guys genuinely think Reform are an English nationalist party. That's how deranged some people have become. Or rather, not deranged, deluded. Deluded is a better word. I don't want to say deranged because that's the wrong word. But more people do need to see the real Plaid. Just have a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. It's from BBC Wales Cast, right? And the person here is correct in what they're saying. Right, that, yeah, the government has gone. They're focusing so much on other areas and they've left Wales in the dust. Right, they're trying to house the world, not the Welsh, for example. But then they thought Plaid was an actual alternative. This way more people need to see the real Plaid Cymru in this instance, for example. Would the real Plaid Cymru please stand up so that we can hit you back down like a game of whack-a-mole?
Our government have gone, haven't they? It's helping other countries. And we're struggling. I've worked all my life. I've just retired and I'm struggling more now than I've ever have.
Do you mean with cost of living and stuff like that?
Yeah, cost of living. Yeah, it's gone sky high. And we're keeping other people.
Someone start a petition to change the term cost of living to cost of government. Let's be accurate about what's really going on. Let's be accurate about what's really causing the costs to rise.
Look,
And do you mean migration? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So who are you thinking about voting for then, given that?
Plaid Cymru.
And what is it about Plaid Cymru that appeals to you?
Well, he's Welsh, isn't he?
Who do you usually vote for, or have voted for in the past?
I used to with the Labour.
But they've lost your vote.
Yeah.
That is who we are
Perfect
as
timing.
a party. Proudly internationalist. We see no borders where we see suffering. Let us continue to ask proudly, what can we do to help? Not where are you from?
Says it all. I appreciate the guys at Senate Waste for attaching that clip on at the end so that I didn't have to go and show it. There you go. It just goes to show again, sadly, how deluded people are. And you can tell as a person that's obviously worked all their life as an older person, thinking that Plaid Cymru is the same Plaid Cymru that maybe existed in the 60s or so on. Right? Sadly not, it would seem. Sadly not. Plaid Cymru has shown, as I spoke about before, that they're for everybody but the people of Wales. They claim to be the party of Wales. They are the party of the world. Right? And that means the Welsh people are going to come last. That's why, if you still think, please send this round, ladies and gentlemen. Share these episodes. The biggest thing you can do is share these with your, with friends, in your social groups, whatever, in your work chats or whatever. At least let people know exactly who these people are. Because the mainstream media is not going to tell you. That's very sad. I talk to people in my family, for example, that only get their information from the lamestream media, from BBC, from ITV and so on, that do puff pieces on these people because they like these people, because they want to keep the status flow going, right? They don't actually want the change, right? Because of how much they've been complicit in it. Let them know. Let them know exactly who Plaid say they are. It's not me saying it. It's a, Welshman here saying that he's for everybody that's not the Welsh first. Because Welsh people are suffering, let me tell you. And it's nothing to do with cost of living. It's cost of government. It's cost of government. And all the while, the government builds and builds and builds. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. There's less room for people to actually pursue things that they want to do then. More and more regulation, more and more clamping down. It's harder to run a business. And they want to obviously run you out anyway because they're in bed with all the big corporations. They're in bed with all the big supermarkets. They're in bed with all the others. So they actually don't want small businesses. They want your high streets to die out. Right? Because it's better for them. It's better for them. So at least, if you're going to vote for Plaid Cymru, vote for them because at least you believe in this globalist international vision that they have or whatever. Not because you think they're a Welsh nationalist party, because they're not. Right, now, getting back onto some of the other topics now. So again, Caerphilly, very sad about that. But again, a lot of reasons to hope. Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing, one of the people on the bridge asked me, do you see this going positive? I was like, yeah, I think the future looks bright. I think the future looks bright because people are waking up. People are waking up more and more and more every single day, especially young people. Like I spoke to, there's definitely more and more young minds we need to win. Absolutely. And it's their future. It's their future and the future of the people that they'll bring into this world, hopefully. Right, that depend on it. But yeah, absolutely. I think things are overall going to trend in a positive direction. We at least seem to have a little bit more time to see what's going on in England and see the changes that they're about to make. Because people are getting sick and tired over in England. People are getting radicalized more and more and more every single day. Right, even Postman Pat, which is coming up a little bit later on in the show. And they've been radicalized by things that they see going on elsewhere as well, like we saw in Ireland recently. So I wanted to highlight this, ladies and gentlemen. This was shared on X. Now, I don't like it when I see children being used for, political reasons, right? Don't like it when the left does it, right, especially. And I don't like it when I see, children being used to push political messaging, right? I highlighted it when one of the schools in Wales was using children for pro-refugee propaganda, whether it's for Ukrainians, whether it's for elsewhere, right? I don't think children should be used in that way. I don't think children should be used in that way because they're not able to see it for the political initiative is what it is. All right? In many ways, you could argue they're not able to consent to these things, if you want to look at it that way. But there was a kid at the Unrest in Ireland recently. It was City West, or City West Hotel, I think it was called, that was spotted wearing a tiger costume, holding a sign saying, "I want to be safe." And she was waving it towards the Gardaí as her mum supported her. This could be a child that's, seeing what's going on, seeing just a bunch of strange people turning up and noticing that they're looking at them funny. Noticing that they don't feel safe when they walk home from school. Maybe one of them has followed them and luckily wasn't able to do anything. They're hearing the reports. They're seeing the unrest of their fellow Irish people, the adults around them. Maybe they're just seeing that they want to be a part of that. I don't know. This person, this could have been another piece of children being used for political initiatives by adults, and the child doesn't necessarily know any better. The subject matter may be different. I don't know. Something just doesn't strike me well when you use children in this way for political messaging. So here's the video for you, ladies and gentlemen. Bringing it up on screen now.
I want to be safe. Głośniej. I want to be safe. Głośniej. Oh, that's so loud I can do. Okay. I want to be safe.
Apologies about that, ladies and gentlemen, again. But again, you see in there, again, a child in a tiger costume holding up a sign saying, "I want to be safe. I want to be safe." And, mixed feelings about it. Just depends on if the child was being deliberately used for a political thing or if it's a organic thing. But again, it's just, if you're going to, criticize, one side for using children as political propaganda, we might say they at least have to exercise scrutiny when it's being done on the other side as well. The government obviously never wants to address the issues. That's the case in the Ireland atrocity. That's the case with what happened in Ireland. People have been very angry at, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I believe it's Michael or Michael Martin or Michael Martin, however you say it. He's I don't know how to say it. Is it Taoiseach? Is that how you say it? Or Taoiseach? I don't know how to obviously pronounce the Irish stuff. He said, "I strongly condemn the violent disorder that unfolded in City West in Dublin this evening. I pay tribute to the frontline Gardaí who acted courageously and quickly to restore order." His statement, however, was, ladies and gentlemen, was the two lines I just said. "The Minister for Justice and Garda Commissioner have briefed me on the operation, and I thank everyone for their work. And Garda Síochána protect us all and have a proud tradition of service to the Irish people." Yeah, I remember that when they were macing teenagers, and they were macing and beating the shit out of teenagers that objected to military-aged males being put into their communities en masse. Yeah, I remember that sort of service that the Garda were doing to their communities when they were pepper spraying elderly women with respiratory conditions. Yeah, we remember those public services. There could be no justification for the vile abuse against them or the attempted assaults and attacks on members that force that will shock all right-thinking people. No mention of a 10-year-old girl that was raped. You wonder why people are angry, ladies and gentlemen. You wonder why people are angry. It's very, very easy to see. They don't like the action that spawned this. They don't like the reaction. Or rather, that's what they don't like. They don't like the reaction. They don't care about the action that spawned it. They don't care about the 10-year-old girl that's had her life ruined. Right? I have to deal with that for the rest of her life, like we saw with the 16-year-old girl from Sweden earlier. They don't care about that. They care about the response. You're not even allowed to be angry about your children being raped anymore when the police won't do anything. The police will continue, in this instance the Garda, will continue to bring unvetted, unwanted, military-aged, migrant males full of testosterone that want to fuck all the white girls and fuck the government into your communities. It will never be this. They'll never house them in their own houses or house them next to them in their lovely, polished estates. It'll be for you to deal with. You have to deal with the ramifications of their foreign voting bloc that they brought in without your consent. That's treason. That's treason. And we should go back to the old laws for it. However, many people in Ireland are actually making their thoughts known at the ballot box with the most popular. They had an election recently, or they were having an election recently. I'm not actually sure where this is. I believe it's Dublin Northwest. I'll bring the image up on screen now. From 24th of October, presidential election of October 24th, right, which was yesterday, I believe. Take a look at this. So as you can see, it's a document, in which case it has the candidate in there. So we have a candidate by the name of Connolly, candidate by the name of Gavin, Humphreys, and then spoiled. Spoiled meaning spoiled ballots. They have a record amount of spoiled ballots in this election, where many people are now saying the most popular option in Ireland at the moment, because they've actually outright barred certain people from running. It's basically a pansy election, right? A patsy election, whatever you want to call it. It's a fake election, basically. The government is deciding purely who can run and who can't. So people are now saying, no, go fuck yourself, by spoiling their ballot. And that's why some people now are saying that the most popular candidate in Ireland at the moment, that's my third voice break in this hour. It's nuts. The most popular candidate in Ireland at the moment is go fuck yourself. And that says a lot. That says a lot. But again, it's people realizing as well, I think, ladies and gentlemen, that the odds of us getting out of this democratically, or odds of us getting out of this, democratically, I suppose, is waning more and more every day. Because there's not much that our ballot counts for anymore. Ever counted in the same way it does in the past anyway. Think about it. You bring in a bunch of people from all across the world and put them in your communities, give them the right to vote. Instantly, the amount of power your vote has matters so much less. Because you have the same vote share. You have the same 100% vote share. But if you have more people, it just means that everyone's vote matters less. So when you have a community of, like, whatever, let's just say 1,000 or whatever, and you just bring in, say, 300 people from elsewhere, you already have a fractured, voter base or vote share. But then instantly everyone else's vote within that community matters less, because then the vote share has to be accounted for by these extra people that have come in. So that's why it's important to note, ladies and gentlemen, why the government are doing what they're doing. They want to devalue your vote. They want to devalue your vote as a step to getting rid of your vote. That's what they want. That's the ultimate end game. And they do not care about anything they have to do to fulfill that aim. Lucy Powell, another great example, ladies and gentlemen. This clip recently resurfaced on X of what she was alleged to have said on Any Questions, a BBC show, when Pakistani grooming gangs were mentioned in a debate. Apparently said, "You want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Let that little dog whistle out, shall we?" This is who are in charge at the moment of getting to the bottom and getting justice for the victims of these gangs. And this is what they really think of them.
I don't know if you saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs.
No, we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah, okay.
There was a real issue.
Let's get that dog whistle out, shall we?
Okay, Lucy. Yeah. The councils, there were so many people who were so afraid for good. Can I just finish the point, just for 1 minute?
Finish that point, Tim, and then I'll bring in Helen.
Look, there were so many people in local government, in the authorities, who, for good reasons, were worried about upsetting community tensions, that those girls went undefended. Now, there were good reasons for it, but no one has still been brought to justice for that. So you tell me, Lucy.
Oh, the dear community tensions. Oh, the dear community tensions. That's what it's all about, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? We dare not do anything that could upset community tensions. That's what actually led, obviously, to the whole atrocity taking place in the first place. But obviously, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. Don't care about the victims. Don't care about anybody else but themselves. That's just the sad reality. Want to blow that little trumpet. I'm sure there's a lot of young girls who are now adults, some that are not even here anymore, Lucy, who would love if more people would have blown the trumpet on what was going on with them. Maybe we wouldn't have such a problem. You wonder why many people are turning further and further and further to the right when they hear things like this. Raped children for racial and religious reasons. And it gets called a dog whistle. It gets called a trumpet. Remember what they said, ladies and gentlemen, when we win. Remember what they said when we win. Now, last thing I want to go over, one of the last things I want to go over, is that another thing about this Labour government in particular is how deeply embedded they seem to be with China and Chinese communists. And I'll play you this clip from Patrick Christie's in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to know what you think. Patrick Christie says, Keir Starmer is either failing to prioritise our national security or the government is completely compromised by the Chinese communists over fresh news on a China spy scandal. It only gets worse. It started with Confucius Institutes in universities, as I spoke about with James Harvey. It only seems to get worse.
In June, that the government would not publish details about Beijing's espionage from the Foreign Office's own China audit. His decision came after the Treasury said that releasing information from the comprehensive analysis of China's influence in Britain could damage trade and investment links. The audit, promised in Labour's manifesto, became just 2 paragraphs in Powell's national security strategy. Wow. Huge news. This is the scandal that could bring down the Labour government. Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry were both accused of spying for China. They were arrested under the Official Secrets Act in March 2023. They were charged with espionage offences on the 22nd of April, weeks before Sir Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister. They always denied the charges, and they continue to deny the charges. But then, on the 15th of September, the charges were dropped, apparently because Labour did not want to say that China was a national security threat. Sir Keir Starmer, who's conveniently jetted off to India, blamed the Tories.
You have to prosecute people on the basis of the circumstances at the time of the alleged offence. And so all the focus needs to be on the policy of the Tory government in place then. That's the only place that the evidence could be focused on.
So, a lot of interesting stuff here. What do we reckon, ladies and gentlemen? Would our government compromise our national security on behalf of China? Of course they would. Of course they would. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? They have everything to gain. Obviously, they want to be just like these people. They want to have the kind of infrastructure that China has. In fact, I want to play you this, ladies and gentlemen. It gets even more thing than this. Ironically, in a country that is blowing coal out of its chimneys like there's no tomorrow, Ed Miliband and other leaders have gone over to China to talk about net zero, of all things, really showing who seemingly one of our government's true paymasters are. As you know, all of the globalist politicians, all of the people pushing this globalist ideal want us to be just like China, right? The totalitarian system that they have, which is, makes Orwell's 1984 blush, right? Why is our net zero minister going over a meeting with Grandfather Xi to talk net zero when his country is funneling out coal emissions, funneling out carbon emissions? Carbon is so bad, right? To tune that anything that the entire UK was to save, China would undo probably not even in a day, in a matter of hours, right? Again, why do we have to make all these concessions when we are so fucking small on the world stage, when literally one good wildfire in California, or again, the daily output of the plants in China are going to dwarf our quote-unquote contributions. But our politicians get the tax money all the same. How interesting is that?
Uses. And now more is emerging by the day. Sir Keir Starmer's national security advisor is that man called Jonathan Powell. And it turns out that he has held extensive meetings with Chinese communists personally, and involving an organisation that he founded called Intermediate. This was revealed on Guido Fawkes earlier today. Chancellor Rachel Reeves inexplicably went to China whilst our economy was crashing here. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband went to China, signed a secret Green Deal. We are not allowed to know what was in that deal. And the Chagos Islands surrender. We were told that it was all about international law. Who helped to make that law? Well, it was Zhu Hanqin, a former official for the Chinese Communist Party. Who stands to benefit most from this Chagos deal? It's China, because they basically use Mauritius as a proxy state. Now, let's just remind ourselves of all of those big hitters who say that Sir Keir Starmer isn't being entirely honest about this.
So the clip's down below, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go and watch the full thing. It's about 5 minutes long. But look at, this is our, what's her name again? She's a Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Boss babe, smashing the glass ceiling, Rachel Reeves. Stood here to attention like a good little pawn. Like the good little pawn that she is. Very telling, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Very telling. But one person who it does seem that would not do us dirty in the same way, ladies and gentlemen. Whereas, you know, Chinese that are slowly taking everything over. Everything in this country is obviously made by China. We don't even make anything anymore, right? I have to check this microphone. Is this microphone made in China? Right, probably is. You know, by children in sweatshops and all the rest of it. About our national security is compromised, about likely foreign exchange students from China, CCP operatives that are going to be feeding back, you know, information via these Confucius Institutes and so on. One person who does not seem to have been taken in by this, does not seem to have sold out his people, is Postman Pat, of all people. And this is a video that emerged on X recently, and this is where I'm going to leave you. I'm going to leave you with this video. Mainly because I think it's quite funny. I think it's quite funny. Who knows? You might not even be seeing this on YouTube. Might get pulled for hateful content. We'll see. Otherwise, you might have to go on over to Rumble or Spotify to see this last part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll make sure that it's not cut by my audio editing. So. This is Postman Pat making his daily rounds in the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen, in 2025. Redubbed as Patriot Pat. As I leave you, have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Hope you enjoy this last segment. And again, understand that it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun with serious concepts behind it, mind you. Serious concepts behind it. But again, it just goes to show the meme authority, it seems, rests solely in the hands of the people on the right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. You take care now. Diolch fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr. See you next time. Awkward silence. I joke it. Godspeed. Video coming on screen now.
Pat, Patriot Pat, Patriot Pat, and his red and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, picks up all the migrants in Pat, Patriot Pat, clear them out, Cat says they're all going back.
Clear them out!
All the eagles cheering, New Britain's beginning, 'cause Pat's been remigrating with his van. Everybody knows his remigration van. All his mutuals smile as he waves to bring them prepare to go back to Bangalore. There'll be knock, ring, migrants at the door. Patriot Pat, Patriot Pat, Patriot Pat, and his red and white cat.
Clear out!
Now Big John's crying pity. We already have the recipes. 'Cause Pat's been remigrating with his van. Pat's been remigrating